Hi, this is Stephen from OWNorDisown. I purchased the ASUS TUF A15 for $1,200 and it has the Ryzen 7 4800H and a full GTX 1660 Ti. And I've already tested how the 8-core Ryzen CPU gets on against the 8-core 9880H and the 9900K in CPU tests, so now I wanted to demonstrate how it gets on in gaming. Now if you find this video useful, please consider subscribing and sharing with your friends. Now the drivers used were 442.23. Now I know these aren't the latest, but you will find that the latest ones shown in the GeForce Experience are not accurate. I spent a good 10 hours playing 14 different games and recorded gameplay using my camera because this laptop has FreeSync and I wanted to show you what I see. Now I didn't perceive any tearing nor ghosting, although my camera is only recording at 60 FPS. So pausing the video will show some ghosting, but I don't think you will see much in the way of tearing. I tested games in various quality settings, including 720p low in some titles, so that puts more onus on the CPU. Here is Rainbow Six Siege. High settings on top and very low settings at 720p on the bottom. With very low settings in 720p, the CPU power and the clock rate is less, as is the RAM usage. Also, the GPU clock rate is much higher, but the utilization struggles even to reach 50%, which shows that the CPU isn't able to keep it fed sufficiently. This is reflected in the frame rates. When you lower quality settings at 1080p, there isn't that much difference in frame rate. Still, you will get close to the refresh rate of the screen, which is 144 Hz, and I didn't notice any major dips. Now on the subject of dips, let's show you Counter-Strike Global Offensive. At high settings, all is good, although the GPU utilization is already low. But this isn't exactly a GPU intensive game, and we are getting about 200 FPS anyway. I then switched to low settings, not really seeing any improvement in frame rate, and then all of a sudden the CPU drops to 400 MHz and the frame rate goes through the floor. Now this also happened at medium settings. So I decided to then switch to very low settings and 720p. Both CPU and GPU utilization is very low, but at least the frame rate is back to where it should be. In my chart, I recorded what those low frame rates were and thought perhaps it was something to do with the game until I started playing Battlefield 5. At the top, I have Battlefield 5 high settings, and at the bottom, medium settings. You will notice that at medium, the CPU and the GPU were downclocking big style, basically making the game unplayable. I then got a blue screen of death with stopcode driver power state failure. After the restart, all was well and I didn't see the issue again, but I did feel it was important to mention this. So I reran Battlefield 5 and show what performance I got, and we got some nice scaling as we lower quality settings. Remember, this is taken from a multiplayer game where there's a lot of action going on. If you play mostly single player, then your frame rate should be higher. Here is PUBG at 1080p. Ultra settings at the top and low settings at the bottom. GPU utilization is very low when you turn down the graphics settings. It certainly seems that the 4800H cannot keep it fed fast enough. But still, I feel that it is much better than the 3750H was. And looking at the benchmark chart, we see that there is basically no difference as we drop down settings. In Fortnite, lowering settings does make a difference, although CPU utilization remains low because the game is not highly threaded. This shows that for most games, a fast quad-core is really all you need. If you are wanting to get really high frame rates, you will need to drop to at least medium settings. Here is Doom at high settings. It has an inbuilt overlay and I was getting over 100 FPS. Now it's a fast-paced game and I saw no tearing at all. Switching to low settings didn't seem to make much difference at all. All 8 cores are about 40% utilization, so again this game isn't really stressing the 4800H all that much. And this is reflected in the benchmark chart. You might as well get all the eye candy and crank up those settings. Now onto a multiplayer match of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Ultra settings on top and low settings on the bottom. Performance is fine, decent GPU utilization, temperatures are good, and looks like you get good scaling when you lower the quality settings. And this is confirmed with the benchmark chart. If you want to get above 100 FPS, you need to drop to medium, but this game sure looks great at ultra settings. Far Cry 5 is well known to heat up a laptop, and here it is at ultra settings. Again, an 8-core CPU is a bit overkill in this game, but clock rates and thermals look good. and when we lower quality settings, we get quite good scaling. Here is Shadow of the Tomb Raider at highest settings, DX12. The CPU gets into the mid-80s and holds a high clock rate. GPU utilization is good, but again, an 8-core is not needed here. And as far as scaling goes, you do get some benefit, about 26% from highest to low settings. Overwatch is a fast-paced game and high frame rates is a must. Here it is at ultra settings. The GTX 1660 Ti is being well utilized, the CPU is holding a nice boost clock and the frame rates are good. When you get into all the action, expect around about 175 FPS. And looking at the benchmark chart, you will notice that we reach a bottleneck below ultra settings. So I do wonder if you will see any improvements with the 2060 model. Apex Legends is a very popular game, and here are my high settings. At the top, I show gameplay at high and at the bottom at low settings. You will notice at low we reach a 144 FPS limit. Here are my high settings for Call of Duty Modern Warfare Warzone. I'm quite impressed here. As you can see with low settings at the bottom, we did get a nice frame rate bump and CPU utilization is close to 50%, so it must be more threaded and GPU utilization is still very good. Now I was asked to play Planetside 2, which is a huge multiplayer sci-fi based first person shooter game. Here it is at ultra settings, and when there is no action going on you will easily see over 100 FPS, but once you get into the action this will drop down to about 80. I thought this game would use plenty of cores, but we remained at about 30 to 40% of CPU utilization. So the final game is Red Dead Redemption 2, here at low settings and using the Vulkan API. This game seems to use the most out of the 4800H, not bad at all. And looking at these last 4 games in my benchmark chart, all but Planetside 2 seem to benefit from lowering quality settings, especially Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think this sums it up nicely. If you have a game that can use more of the 8 cores, then you will see a good improvement lowering the settings. Otherwise, a fast 4 or 6 core CPU is perfectly fine. If you want your laptop just for gaming, then you don't really need the 4800H. But as it is priced so competitively, it can't do any harm and does add a degree of future proofing for you. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.